perhaps the greatest living sound poet. And he has been working in this field for so many years now, doing such a variety of work, that it's truly a pleasure to have him here in San Francisco with us for the first time in his life, doing an entire evening of his work and speaking about it with us so that we can become better acquainted with what it is exactly he does. He was born in 1928 in Paris, and his family, as some of you know, ran one of the great champagne houses, the Charles Heidsieck Champagne. And Bernard decided to study economics, to leave the family business, to go to Paris, and to pursue a career in the arts. And it was his discovery of the domaine musical of Pierre Boulez and the new music of the mid-50s of Stockhausen and Barrio and Varese and Cage and others, which led him to the conclusion that his field of poetry was 50 years behind the times. And he wanted to find a way to update the idea of poetry and bring it to an audience in a dramatic fashion, and this is what he's been doing for all those years. Let's see if we can find that. Do you think you can find that little glitch somewhere? Not findable? And letters all over the page with a lot of blank space. And I gather that these are to be done in a kind of musical performance or musical fashion. Were you writing really straight poetry before this?
Yes, before that means before 1955, I used to write poetry which was more or less, let us say, influenced by poets like Pierre-Jean Jouve or Henri Michaud. And that decade, anyway, in France, was for poetry a rather sad decade, because there were the last sparkles of surrealism and the last sparkles of the poetry, resistance poetry, and the poetry, the poem was going more deeper and deeper into the page, and finally disappeared, and the page remained blank. And that was not so exciting, and I thought that it was really the end of a cycle for poetry, and that something else had to be done. And I had just published a book in '55 and realized also what was the circulation of poetry. That means something horrible for if you believe in something. And really, instead of having a poem on the page, passive, waiting for the reader, I thought that it was really the moment to change and to make it active and to push it, to take it off from the page and to make it, to throw it to the listener. It happens, as Charles said, that just at that moment, there were concerts organized by Pierre Boulez, called the Domaine Musical, to which I attended with great patience, and I discovered there not only the Viennese musicians like Berg, Webern, and Schoenberg, who were, as you know, the gods of Boulez, but I discovered the music of his generation, and they were he and Stockhausen and Berrio and Xenakis, and they were not 30 years old at that date, so they were quite young, and that was a new music at that date, and it was really something quite new. And when I heard for the first time the Der Gesang der Jünglingen by Stockhausen, it was like a revolution, and I went out of all those concerts with the idea that really poetry was 50 years late in comparison with music, and really that a lot of things should be done, and as tape recorders appeared, were available in shops at the date, even if they were quite simple. They were just mono and very heavy and with not many possibilities. But anyway, that was already something, and a new medium which could help us for a new circulation of poetry. That was to take it out of the book and out of the page, and to make it circulate and to make it listened by people. And at the same time, the tape offered not only the fact that it made you discover your own voice, but it offered small possibilities of making, let us say, cut-ups, things like that, to change the rhythm of text, and some manipulations, very simple at that time. And that's how I very suddenly decided to change from the way I was writing up to 55, and then I called my text score poem partition, because the way the texts were written on the pages helped me, like a score, to read them out loud to some friends first, and then to a public a little larger. But
do you think you could read one of these for us to give us an idea of this early work? I'm attracted to this one because it begins with the word "few."
It's a book. And that's poems made. I was very impressed by paintings by a painter called Jean de Gotex, who was a gestural painter. And I had the idea to make some small poems which would have the same rapidity of the gesture of de Gotex that I didn't know at the time. I sent him after that the text, and we became quite close friends. And so there were some trials to be in relation with the rhythm of these paintings.
Would this be the same as an action painter in the United States?
That would
like
be, yes.
Pollock or one of those?
Yes, but the only difference would be that he was influenced by Orient, spirit and Zen. But that was the same,
more like
same moment, another word for the same moment.
Right.
So c'est là, Bébou, SSU, sur les stigmas, des pièges d'azur d'Eldane. Voilà.
That's a complete poem.
Yes.
In case we have a problem, so Laura, would you like to translate that?
Now there's a challenge.
We'll call you if we need you.
Perle, coule gouline, dégouline, coule, coule, chute, perce, délire, pictance, en ton souhait, passe, tendu.
Is any of that meaning of the words important?
That's words éclaté, éclaté,
Explode.
explode
Uh-huh.
on the page.
So they are segmented and
Yes.
and stretched.
By syllables.
Okay. Any questions for Bernard about this early work? Were there other people doing this kind of poetry at the time that you knew of in Paris?
Well, there was, of course, the lettist group, which used to do phonetic poetry. But I wouldn't call that phonetic poetry, because they are words, even if they are exploded like that on the page. They started from abstract sounds, which were not at all words, and they wanted to make something which had no meaning at all, which is not the case here. Each poem has its meaning, and if you read it, you can find finally the word in its totality. That was not the case of the list. So
What was the point of the lettres? What did they want to do? Explode the word and make it into a
they wanted to make
non-meaning?
they said, let's say that Izu, the theory of Izu, which is not uninteresting.
Isidore Izu, the founder.
Isidore Izu, he is the founder of the movement, said that the poem, if we take France as an example, the poem from Baudelaire, concentrated on itself in the middle of the 19th century. And then that's the concentration came on the verse with Mallarmé. And then the concentration came on not on the verse, but on the word. That was Dada, and after that, what remained, the letter, and that was Izu. So I didn't agree with that. And I say that indeed, perhaps there has been that cycle, that more and more concentrated work on the poem.
Yeah.
But the new start, that corresponded to an end of something, not the later. And the way the poem has had to do was to do the reverse and to go out of the page and to use new mediums like tape recorder and records and public readings and to get touch with society again instead of hiding itself more and more and more and more and more into the page. And finally, the reader who was amused at the beginning by that hide-and-seek game finally was bored by it and went to read novels, no more poetry. So I thought that if poetry had to exist still now, it was necessary to make it down the reverse process and to offer it by direct contact with
I'd like to invite the audience at any time to give us questions so that we can continue the interview. Stephen Rippendahl, yes.
Bernard, many of the lettres contributed to an alphabet, a compositional alphabet. And I was wondering if during that time, did you have any opportunity or chance or reason to use that to score your early pieces?
No, I think that was the thing with which I didn't agree at all. The new alphabet they were inventing, because that alphabet, they invented new signs for mouse sounds and things like that.
Oh, other abstract sounds.
Yes. So it's impossible. You have to learn a new alphabet of sounds of much more than 26 letters, but of 50, hundreds of letters. It's really impossible to read. And then they have not thinking of that, to use new sounds. They have not thought to use, to enter in sound poetry. They remain fascinated by the page, and they invented new characters for other sounds than the letters we know, but printed. So I think there was no use to do it. That's why François Dufresne, who was a great friend and who came from the lettrisme, s'est séparé, separated from the lettrisme movement in '52 and decided to make the ultra-lettrisme, which meant to improvise directly with a microphone on the tape new sounds without any invented characters.
But you were fascinated.
He wanted spontaneity.
You said you were fascinated by Stockhausen Gesang der Jünglinge, which has a lot of vocal sounds and a lot of popping sounds and so forth. There were many linguists who were devising methods for notating these sounds, and Stockhausen, I believe, and others used them in their scores to specify abstract sounds. So that didn't interest you because it was already done, or
well,
because
I didn't know
lead
how
to a meaning?
I didn't know how he had done that piece. I remember how surprised I was when that was the first electronic piece I heard,
Oh, yeah.
and And more than
Still
that,
very
it was a
brilliant,
piece
yeah.
with voices, so quite close to what I was looking for. Even if I thought it's a piece made by a musician, that's not what I want to do. I'm not a musician, but I think that poetry can do some new things that way, anyway.
We're going to take a big jump ahead now to a piece called La Poinçonneuse, which is from what, 1970,
Yes.
I think. And in this piece, Bernard takes a story, an event, an incident that happened to a friend of his, and transforms it into a tape composition. And when he plays the tape, he does a kind of performance with the tape. And so that's what we're going to experience next. Now, can you tell us about the genesis of this piece?
That's indeed a real story which happened to a friend of mine who used to take a special station of the subway in Paris to go to his job every morning. And once, passing in front of the Poinçonneuse,
Oh, that's a ticket puncher, a female
yes,
ticket
who
puncher.
have now disappeared because it's electronic. And giving her his ticket, she told him, "Oh, sir, you have dropped that paper." And she gave him a paper which revealed itself to be a love letter. So the surprise was great for him in the atmosphere of the metro to receive such a love letter from the Poinçonneuse, which was an elderly woman. And that was, it became nearly dramatic because he had to change his life. He couldn't think to pass in front of her the next day. So he was obliged to change his life by going further to take another station, which took him more time to go to his job. But a few weeks after, he tried again, hoping that she wouldn't be here, but she was there. And he received a second letter, which said that if you don't answer to me or if you don't speak to me, I will ask my boss to be moved to another station, which happened finally. She probably asked that and succeeded, and so he could